for the home initiative, some of the pushback, right? I've seen that there are no quote unquote like big A affordability mechanisms built into it. I've seen that it can lead to some like speculation, land speculation, and driving up prices, in that now developers are going to chase these lots even more, right? And I was surprised in just kind of researching this, like watching some news articles, that there was a more diverse coalition that opposed the home initiative versus, watching the more of like the Code Next opposition seem to come from, 78703 exclusively, right, sort of thing. So what's the counter argument to some of these pushbacks on the home initiative?
So use a little bit of jargon there. Let's talk about what you said about big A affordability, right?
Okay.
So there's big A affordability, which is income restricted. So let's say the city has a grant in, or the city has helped subsidize through affordable housing bond dollars to help make sure that a certain unit is going to be income restricted for 40 years if it's rental or 99 years if it's home ownership. That's called big A affordability. And of course, little A affordability is your naturally occurring affordability, which Austin used to be chock full of. I lived on South Lamar, an amazing home for $400 a month back in the late 90s. It was cheap and wonderful place. And there was a lot of naturally occurring affordability. I mean, maybe there was a dumpster nearby or a sodium light or whatever, but for whatever reason, we had a lot of naturally occurring affordability. As you limit your new housing supply in a growing city, that stuff goes away pretty fast. So yeah, there are definitely some folks saying, hey, there should be a density bonus requirement. So if we're allowing you more entitlements, you should have a requirement to have a income restricted unit on your lot. There's just not enough meat on the bone. Consultants have shared this with us. Any developer can share this with you, can walk through the numbers on this. I know this working at Habitat. Like, we have to subsidize housing units even beyond what the city participates in. So when the city comes in and helps invest in the unit, make that a possibility for a family here in Austin, that's still not enough to make it pencil. Mm-hmm. So we know that there's just this huge delta, and to only add 1 or 2 more homes per lot, and then to try and require one of those to be affordable, right, that is nothing but a poison pill. That just means you're going to get hardly any of those ever built. The only time it's going to happen is if it's quite literally grandma living there and she wants to make sure her son and her grandson can live on that lot. And that's amazing. And those opportunities are definitely going to happen. We heard from some grandmothers who spoke during Home Phase 1. One who spoke very loud and clear. She's like, my grandson can't afford to live in Austin, but my backyard's huge. Wouldn't it be great if we pass this and I can build a home back there for him? So, those stories exist. But if we really want these smaller units to kind of be built all over Austin and allow a lot more families to live in Austin, we have to allow that type of home to be built, and we can't try and extract something from it. Right. Housing is a community benefit unto itself. As far as the misinformation out there, though.
Oh, sorry, just to recap that.
Sure.
So that's really clear, because I think it's an important point. And so when we say affordable, right? 2 meanings being the one where we say big A affordability, and that is income restricted housing. And by requiring one of those 3 units that's going to be on the lot to be income restricted, we say there's not enough meat on the bone, meaning that no developer would ever build them because it just wouldn't be profitable. And so half of the battle is getting a developer to build it also. And by taking the little a affordability approach is more just increasing supply, increasing density, and by more units being available, it'll put downwards pressure on market rates for prices to come down.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, we have to talk about that. So in Texas, we are not allowed to have inclusionary zoning. So you're going to build a building. You are required to have a certain number of homes be affordable when you're in Boston. This isn't Boston. This is Austin. So in Austin, we can use a density bonus program, which is an incentive. So you have your base entitlement, which is just simply what you're allowed to go out there and build today. But the city knows we need housing, knows we need bigger sidewalks and better sidewalks, knows we want street trees, maybe ground floor retail. And so a good example is vertical mixed use. A lot of those buildings you see in your commercial corridors, those are vertical mixed use buildings. And so what we say is you can build more of a building with less city restrictions that limited the number of units you can build in exchange for 10 or 12% under DB 90, which is something council just passed. If you build that bigger building, we just require 10 to 12% of those homes to be income restricted. Now notice that was 10 to 12% in that big building. When you have 1 out of 3, that is a 33% density bonus program. Outside of Affordability Unlocked, which was known to be a subsidized program, we don't expect any market rate developer to be utilizing Affordability Unlocked. We talked about that through its entire creation back in 2019. So through a density bonus program, you are incentivizing folks. So basically, if I'm going to give you, a water, let's dumb it down a little bit. If you're going to see $10 of value in this, you're going to be willing to spend $5 to $8 to get that $10 of value, right? Okay. But if I try and extract too much as a city, and I'm trying to extract $10 from you to get $10, right? And then there's all these uncertainties of a longer time frame, or I'm trying to extract $20 for you to give me $10. Like those are just dead on arrival.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. And okay, so going back to opposition of home, and what's the counter argument to some of the fight being put up against it?
So there's something called exclusionary zoning. So zoning categories that are really by default only available to your very top income earners. And most of our single family zone neighborhoods are now 100% protected by exclusionary zoning. They're just unaffordable to the vast majority of Austinites. And there's always going to be folks who want to keep it just that way. And I hear this argument. I hear it often. It's like, well, when I bought my home in 1973, this is the way it was, and this is the way it should stay. And if Austin wasn't growing, or if Austin was shrinking, or if we just had plenty of housing and nobody was, living on the streets and there wasn't an affordability crisis, then we can talk about that, right? That could be a viable conversation of, well, maybe it shouldn't change. But we are a fast-growing city. There's a lot of folks who come here for opportunities. Our natural birth rate is making us grow. Like this is our natural growth rate just by births over deaths. So there's just folks who simply, I graduated, I live here, I'm born here, don't I get a place to stay? Right. And so we have to allow housing to be easier to build in a growing city. Otherwise, the problems are going to be a whole lot worse. And we're seeing those problems. We talk to a lot of folks every day. We all talk to these folks. A lot of folks talk to me, like, how do I get my daughter, my son to kind of open up and talk to me a little bit more? Or how do you get a stranger, a young person to talk to you a little bit more? Ask anybody on the streets that you meet. Ask your waiter, ask your Lyft driver, ask anybody. Ask them about housing. Just say, hey, what are your thoughts on housing here in Austin? They'll stop everything. They'll talk to you. Like they'll just open up and you're just like, wow.
Everybody has an opinion.
Oh, and it's strong. Yeah. And they realize something's wrong and something's really, really, really broken. And so, yes, there's going to be folks who simply, for the most part, homeowners, or just a real bummer about housing policy is I can spend 5 minutes giving you misinformation and telling you how terrible this policy is and it's going to ruin your lives and destroy your neighborhood. And I can have you more motivated to speak up against it than you would be if I gave you an hour of time sharing you about this great new policy and how it's going to be good for all these reasons about, supporting trans and supporting Austin's tax base and allowing for more folks to live in Austin on a budget that they can afford within their means. And it's just harder to get people to speak in favor for something. And it's just so easy to scare people with nonsense.
Yeah, it's just like general politics. People vote when they're scared, right? Like, and not when they're overjoyed about how well things are going, right?
Right.